What is up? And welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. We could not let y'all go without putting a bow on women's college basketball season. So I got to run it back with my guy, Mike McGee. Mike, thanks for coming back on, man.
Hey, pleasure to be brought back on. You know, I was doing a lot of yapping in the Final Four preview, so I usually have like a one-shot thing. It's like, all right, no one's asking me back, so let me get all these takes, all this, fake analysis out the way. No, but it was really fun conversation and definitely fun to see how the games played out, and happy to get back on here and chat it up with you.
Definitely. So we have to start with our UConn-UCLA takes from the Final Four. The people on TikTok, Mr. Or Mrs., I guess, username, a lot of numbers, was not pleased with our take, with the benefit of hindsight on their end. And we were talking before we started recording. There were some major caveats thrown in there as well, correct?
Yes, indeed. Don't expect, the TikTokers, especially, accounts with lots of numbers, which my account on TikTok also has, because that's the one platform that I do not, I've like blocked it off because I know myself as an extremely online person. So I get my TikToks, like a true millennial, from Twitter, from Instagram. When they migrate over there, that's where I see the TikToks. So, I think these are four really great teams that were in the Final Four. I mean, all, except UConn officially number one seeds. So we were hopeful for some really close, exciting contest, and really talked about the games, as like how, if they do this, then this game could be close. But we did throw in with the UCLA UConn analysis that, hey, if UCLA does not bring their A game, arguably even their A plus game, this could just be a blowout. Did not expect for it to turn out exactly like that. It's definitely obviously in the range of outcomes. Like, you think about a game that's played 100 times, that outcome that happened Friday night, most likely happens maybe, 20 out of those 100 times, 10 out of 100 times. So it's not the rarest thing, but definitely disappointing. But hey, we gotta, like you said, the benefit of hindsight. If you could bottle that up and sell that, we'd be doing podcasts from a beach somewhere or something. So of course it's the best drug, the best brain enhancement, looking at past events and being like, see, that take was bad. That's the life, you live as a podcast host. You got to put your takes out. So I'm happy to fall on that sword with you.
Yes. And that it always is it cracks me up, because it is the nature of sports fandom and social media today too. But the fact that you would show up after the fact and act like you knew beforehand, and you're still remaining anonymous, all that combined together is interesting to me. But I do appreciate you watching and listening and commenting, even if your comments were a little unhinged. But at what point during the game did you realize that the worst case scenario was playing out for UCLA? And what was it about what was going on that made you think, oh, it's this Bruins team we're going to see tonight?
Yeah, I mean, probably the first couple minutes.
Yes.
But, when I'm watching a game, like, we'll eventually talk about the title game, but especially when it's great teams or a up and coming team going against a juggernaut, like a UConn, like a South Carolina, when coming into the game, you have to be not perfect, but as close to perfect as possible. You kind of notice, I like to call them like kind of use like a boxing, kind of body blows. you kind of notice like early on, like sometimes it happens where the score is within 1 to 2 possessions throughout the first quarter, but one team already has 2 of their major players in foul trouble. And so they're on the bench already. And so it's like the score is close, but there's some body blows happening that, if they keep connecting, this could turn from a 1 to 2 possession game to a double digit lead and potentially a blowout. So in that first quarter, UCLA was hanging with UConn in the score, but their shots were harder to come by. They were trying to feed Lauren Betts in the post, but UConn played incredible defense. Janelle Alfie was amazing early on, but she got into some foul trouble. And so that combined with the lack of, paint, like penetration by the guards was like, well, if UCLA, like once I get into like if then statements with the team that I've said like could probably, maybe spring a light upset, it's not good. So it's like, well, if UCLA can hit these threes, then maybe they can hang in, and then they weren't making any shots. And so it was like, okay, the score, I forgot exactly what the score was in the first quarter, but they were down maybe 4 to 6 points. It wasn't anywhere near as bad as it turned out to be. Then I'm like, they really need to right the ship here, or it could get, ugly quick. Then the second quarter started, and then it did get ugly quick. And then I turned the game off, and I watched The Pit on HBO or Max or HBO Max, whatever it's called. And that was a great decision. I was like, all right, UCLA is not they're not here. Them getting to the Final Four was their prize, and UConn is here for bigger goals and showed it. So I peaked a couple times, but it just was like 23, 29. Ooh, they got it back down to 23. Nope, it's up to 30 now. So I was like, nah. They came for the participation trophies. So, it got ugly pretty quickly, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think when I picked up on how far out UCLA was initiating their offense and trying to make those passes into Lauren Betts, I was like, they had Kiki Rice damn near half court trying to throw post entry passes. And I was like, oh, well, I had a 10K. I was waking up to run the next morning. Pretty big, the big local race here. And I was like, I'm about to be so well rested because I am not watching this anymore. I'm going to go ahead and get some sleep.
Hey, thanks, UCLA.
So thank you for helping me survive that race. But I was like, what is this? That's kind of been where I've been at with Kiki Rice, where it doesn't feel like a true point guard to me. And obviously, if a team is going to shine a light on that, where you're kind of a little bit of a tweener, it's going to be a team that's as great as UConn. Like, you can get away with not being a true point guard against almost every other team in the country, but that's one of those teams where it's like, okay, we're going to figure this out. And then you could kind of see them where it was like they were starting to just mentally fold and no adjustments were being made, and it was just a whole thing. So I was like, let me just go ahead and get some nice rest tonight, and we'll just see what happens. And
exactly. I mean, these games, these Final Four games, more so on the men's side, but with 2 games, one night and starting at night, they can start pretty late, and like you said, you had a 10K. Those are early race starts. I know about that 10K, half, and full marathon life now. And so, thank you, UCLA. Thank you, UConn, for playing so great to, wrap up the, expected outcome, basically 12 game minutes in. So how kind of those teams there. But like you hit the nail on the head there in terms of just how difficult, when it's really difficult for one team, not only to score, but to initiate their offense, to try to score. And then on the other side, UConn's hitting shots, the pick and roll's working well. They're all 3 levels of scoring is clean. They're, even when UCLA's playing great defense, they're hitting tough shots. The Doesn't mean that team that's getting the easier offense is going to win, but it's definitely the most likely.
Yeah.
So that's what ended up happening there. But, just on UCLA, obviously that result, and if we're just thinking about, we got our Friday, this is our Friday mode on. We're not thinking about Sunday yet, but just as a Friday night, and like you alluded to, just with the state of, social media commentary, sports social media commentary, and the what gets clicks, what gets, I like how we say clicks, but it's mostly like mobile, so they're taps, but you don't really want to say taps or anything else because it sounds weird. But what gets engagement, it was just UCLA is frauds, fraud alert, fraudulent, every variation of fraud you could imagine, and see, told you so, and they never had a chance, and they never should have been the overall one seed. It was just pouring down. Again, this is Friday mode, not 36 hours later, when UConn essentially did the same thing to South Carolina for the second time this year. So it's unfortunate, but hey, UCLA, they know they gotta bring a better game so that you shut that up before it starts. But if we're looking back on the full season, UCLA should be extremely proud of what they did. I mean, they improved over the year before, which was also a successful year. They were able to beat LSU to get that revenge from last year's tournament and make it to their first official NCAA Final Four. And they have this full class of juniors coming back next year. So they're already up there in the top one or two teams that are favored, and they'll have this experience of making it to this Final Four there. So while it's a disappointing result for UCLA and a disappointing way it happened, that should not take away from a really brilliant season that they had, and they beat some really good teams. But who has that nuance? That's why we have these conversations.
Don't do that.
Put that in a tweet or TikTok. So just props to UCLA's season. Obviously disappointing in the Final Four, but hey, only one team can win.
Yes, and UCLA, they lost to two different teams all year. And they lost to Southern Cal and they lost to UConn. And the fact that as bad as it was, because trust me, it was bad, but I don't see how that cancels out everything good they accomplished. So I hope the players and the program, like you're saying, they take that and carry it forward with them. But it is funny how we do that. Like, you lose one game and you're trash. You're trash. I'm sorry.
Yeah, never should have picked the basketball. The first time you ever picked up basketball in your life, there should be someone there saying you're a fraud. Don't continue. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. That's essentially every game is like a war, and every game is like your identity is on the line, no matter what you've done in the past. Quick little note there that yes, the only two teams that UCLA lost to was USC in two close games and UConn. And guess who beat UConn at UConn? USC. So these are the same, yes, UConn, and we'll talk about how incredible UConn has been since mid-February. We touched on kind of their, non-comp to mid-February and how they did not look like how they've looked over the last, 2.5 months, or 6 weeks. So it's, on one hand, people are saying UCLA is fraudulent, but again, they got beat by the team of a team that they beat. And USC went into Stores, Connecticut, and beat UConn. This just shows how, matchups can differ and how times of the year can differ. And, it's a single elimination game. Anything can happen. So, yeah, just respect to UCLA. There are no frauds in this Final Four.
No. And the other matchup in that Final Four, South Carolina, Texas, I think, so that we're on the record and everything's clear, I think we thought it was going to be closer than it ended up being. But We
Yes.
weren't too shocked by the result. We were expecting a South Carolina win. Were there any surprises from you on that end with that game? Because we posted those clips too, but people weren't as excited to talk about them.
I mean, there are many reasons for that. Or at least one could be like, their fatigue of just seeing Texas and South Carolina play. Like, I'm a sicko. Like, hey, if the best teams are the best teams and they happen to play 3 or 4 or 5 times, then hey, that's just what the year's given us. I will take it as a gift to see how can teams match up against each other when they played each other 3 times already each month of the year. And so the first half was really fun for me. It was really cool to see the strategy, the adjustments that were being made, the execution or the lack thereof on both sides. And I think the game was pretty close in the first half. It's just that third quarter, I think it was really telling how South Carolina came out in the beginning, the first set that they ran that led to that beautiful breezy 3, like wing 3, where she I think that was the iconic where she hit the shot and was celebrating and then fell on the way back down on defense. So that's what a lot of people remember. But what I got from that was like, oh, this is a big moment that really kind of told the story of the rest of that third quarter where South Carolina just opened up a huge lead. But I think again, going back to kind of the body blows thought is that Madison Booker getting those 3 fouls in the first half turned out to be a bigger thing. Like the score was closer, but if Madison Booker, she was hitting shots. Like she, came out the gate firing, but she got into foul trouble and had to sit for a long time. That's when Jordan Lee came in, and South Carolina basically was like, we dare Jordan Lee to shoot. And me being, a Jordan Lee enthusiast, and we talked about Jordan Lee, a bit in the preview. It's like, it's a bold strategy. Like, I hope it works out for you. And she missed her first shot, almost airballed it, but it was almost like that was the calibration shot. Like, okay, I'm a rookie in the Final Four. I'm nervous. I'm wide open. Those can be the kind of the scariest shots too, just like a wide open 3 on the biggest stage. But after she got that out the way, she scored 10 points in the second quarter or whatever. So South Carolina changed that up to not give her open 3s. So I thought Texas did a good job keeping it close and playing good defense and rebounding effectively. It's just that Madison Booker getting into foul trouble, and also their posts. We talked about how the posts for both teams have been not necessarily the difference, but something to look at in the previous 3 matchups. And when Texas has, won or at least, stayed even with South Carolina's production with points and rebounds, that's been the difference for Texas winning versus losing. And in this game, it picked up more in the second half. Chloe, especially in Joyce, like in the first half, was keeping South Carolina really kind of in it when South Carolina was struggling to, make, buckets or even get second chance opportunities or get to the free throw line. I think Joyce almost had like a double before the first half was done. So it ended up having, 13 points, 11 rebounds, 6 assists. Like that's an incredible stat line. And I think we also said in the preview that we expected Joyce to have a bounce back, based on the performance she had throughout the tournament. Like she's gonna, more than likely snap back into it. So all of that led for me to be a very compelling first half. It just was too much South Carolina on both ends in the third quarter. And then it became that, oh, Madison Booker, Rory Harmon, please save us from the mid-range. And that's all we have as an offense. We're just going to keep doing the Princeton weave or whatever and hope y'all can make one of these hard mid-range shots. And they did not make any. And, the rest is history.
Yeah, it was tough for Texas because you're right. It looked like we had a game on our hands. Excuse me. And those 3 fouls, we talked about the refs too. I really think they were fouls. I think there was one on Madison Booker that, you could have had an issue with. The third one she picked up, that was really on her to me. Like you are trying to make a play there, but
Mm-hmm.
you have 2 fouls, get out of the way. Because she was hooping immediately. Like she was feeling it, and then it is hard to get back in a rhythm when that happens. Do you think Vic sat her too long with the foul trouble?
Yeah, well, that's an interesting. There's an easy answer to be like maybe in hindsight, yes, but watching Madison play, like, and knowing Texas, like their mentality, their priority is to play aggressive defense and to just prioritize defense. So they don't really have a defensive style, at least from what I can see, not being a defensive set specialist that knows exactly I know man to man or zone in different zones, but like not exactly the coverages that they're calling and the assignments they have. I just don't see how you hide Madison Booker on the court in just the way that Texas plays, and just knowing that she plays aggressive, like that third foul. And really, I tweeted about it, but like South Carolina was really good. Like, I don't know if it was intentional strategy, but they were really adamant about like having a quick inbounds or just like trying to get to transition offense as soon as possible, especially off of Texas made baskets. So that third foul came off of, I think, a made basket, by Texas. And then South Carolina just immediately sprinted and threw a long pass down to Tessa, and Madison was coming back from a made shot and reacted. It wasn't like and I think a couple other times earlier before either the second or third foul, Madison Booker got a steal off of South Carolina trying to advance the ball quickly off of a made or missed field goal. And so it seemed like an intentional strategy from South Carolina to have a fast pace, to get the ball down, to switch it up. And I think that I think 2 of Madison's 3 fouls in the first half were because of that transition offense and her reacting. A couple times it worked in her favor and it got a steal or deflection. Other times it was a grave error because she got picked up some quick fouls. So I think because of that, I don't know what Vic does. I mean, she can't get a fourth, or she can't get a third in the first quarter. You hope that time is off. And thankfully, Jordan Lee was able to, and Rory were able to kind of absorb some of the scoring. But that was an opportunity if Madison Booker's on the court to go from a 3 to 5 point Texas lead to a 9 to 12 point Texas lead. But because she was in foul trouble, they had to just immediately kind of go back into max prevent and just kind of like, let's just stay in the game. Let's hold on instead of let's extend. So it's just kind of a tough position to be. But that's, I think, a larger issue with just how Texas plays in their kind of roster construction. It's like they need more, like you have a focal point. Like UConn has Paige, but they also have Sarah and AZ and all these other, weapons. Texas has players that can shoot, but they don't normally have shooters. Like for me, it's like everybody can make a shot, but are you known for the defense as a shooter? Like Jordan Lee is a shooter. Like she shows she can make shots, at all 3 levels. But Rory can only make it mid-range and inside the paint. And it was limited. And so when you're limited and the other team knows that and they have the personnel to take away your strengths, then you have to be better than perfect. And that's almost impossible.
That's a fantastic point, because as much analysis as everyone likes to do, it pretty much comes down to a mix of talent, the game plan, and how well you execute the game plan. And sometimes you just don't have that right mix, and it is what it is. Like, what can we do? And moving forward to the next game, we saw that play out for South Carolina. How were you feeling about that matchup, South Carolina and UConn, heading into that national championship game? Could you see where the Gamecocks could have pulled it off? I mean, obviously, they're there. Or was it like, okay, we're going to need a lot to go perfect here?
Yeah. I like to go off of vibes because I don't know exactly, what the game plans are or exactly what's going on inside these locker rooms. Like, just kind of, you try to think through all the games you've watched this year, but also especially these two programs over the last few years, and then their matchups. From 2020 on, after that kind of COVID weird, no one in the stands game in stores where UConn last won, every other matchup has been, I feel, going into this game, like before the game's played, South Carolina's got the edge for a myriad of reasons. Whereas, even going back to that mid-February matchup, again, we talked about it in the preview podcast, like the week leading up to that, UConn fans were, prepping eulogies and being like, because they had not beaten any major program outside of North Carolina and Iowa State before Iowa State, as Iowa State was sliding this season. Those were their best wins, non-conf wins. So they flipped it in that game, and from there on, they've been, playing like the best team in the country. So knowing what had happened in mid-February, like in South Carolina, I was like, South Carolina need to be perfect, but I'm making arguments in my head as to how South Carolina can win. And when I'm doing that, then you just have to think reflexively of like, well, if I'm trying to will arguments as to, well, if like the if then, if South Carolina can hit perimeter shots, if they can get into the paint, if they can do this, then you just, the easier thing is like, well, UConn's going to win. So UConn was favored, I think, by 6.5 points. And I, dabble in sports betting, the very healthy way to say it. And so I was like, I'm either betting UConn to win or I'm not betting at all. And also I've been burned by South Carolina a lot this year. I've bet because I was like, it's South Carolina. Of course they can cover. And then they haven't. So just those were the kind of my thoughts going in of like, just the way UConn's playing. But if South Carolina can shoot like they did, we didn't talk about that explicitly, but like South Carolina, that was arguably one of the best and most efficient shooting performances the Gamecocks have had all year. Like they had on Friday night against Texas. Like they shot nearly 60% overall from the field and like 60% from three. It's like, well, if they can do that, or at least even 45% in both those categories, then they can win this game. But if they don't do that and UConn keeps their baseline, it's going to be challenging.
Yeah, heading into it, I was kind of doing the same thing where I was making up scenarios of what South Carolina could do to win the game. And so, yeah, you're right. The red flag started immediately popping up because I just don't think it was a great matchup just based off of, I don't know who you put on Sarah Strong. And that could be not just for South Carolina, but like in the country. And we talked in the preview episode about everything Paige can do and how what she does just lets other people go off as well. And AZ has been looking fantastic the past probably a couple months of the season. Like really looks comfortable with her knee and everything. And I mean, she obviously had an incredible game. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Like it would have to be either a Friday night shooting performance or even going back to sometime last year. I'm thinking like second round against North Carolina shooting performance for South Carolina to do it, in my opinion, because it was just, there were just so many things going against them. Mainly offensively, things just looked so jammed up. Similar to what we talked about with the UCLA game, at what point were you like, oh, okay, UConn definitely is the superior team here? And it was in the afternoon, so I don't think anyone went to sleep. I didn't go to sleep. But if it were at night, you could have gone to sleep.
Yeah, I mean, the game actually started off like gangbusters.
It was like a heavyweight match.
They were going at it. It was like, okay, This is UConn, this is South Carolina. These have been the two most dominant programs over the last 15 years. And here they are meeting at a kind of a different stage. Like UConn's trying to get back to that level that South Carolina took from them, from 2017 on. And so it was like, okay, here we are. Like this is another chapter in this modern rivalry. And they came out the gates firing. And then in the second quarter, they shifted to both playing really great defense. Like I usually try to start with I think, just as trying to be nice, but we as a basketball community do not appreciate great defense. Great defense looks like messy offense. When the team fails and has a shot clock violation, it's probably because it was great defense and not just that the offensive team messed up. There are two teams on the court at the same time here. It's not just the playing skills competition. So they were playing elite defense. They were making offenses work deep into the shot clock. They were getting turnovers. They were getting 50-50 opportunities, both sides. And so there was okay, UConn has got a little lead, but this is still up for grabs. But then UConn started, for me at least, to look like shades of that February matchup where they were able to get downhill. Their perimeter players were hitting shots. And it's, again, similar to the UCLA-UConn matchup where it's one side was getting either everything they wanted, whether it was easy or not, and the other side, like you mentioned it, with South Carolina's offense was jammed up. They weren't able to really initiate what they wanted. And so I can't remember exactly what the halftime score was, but it was starting to get out of hand. And then obviously, the second half, it was completely you think maybe South Carolina can mount a comeback. And they did. I think that's another thing, just looking at kind of a macro level, is that this South Carolina team, just thinking about the tournament, Malaysia Fulwiley has been that, savior. Yep. She has come in, changed the game. Yes, spark off the bench, 6th player of the year types. That's their role, is to come in and present a different look and to, hopefully be really efficient and effective immediately to extend the lead or to pull a game close again. But Malaysia was being asked to do more than that. Do all the things that a 6th player does, but also you gotta put the team on your back. And I guess the open question is, how many times can a player do that? And so she didn't have a great first quarter, I think, or definitely not a first half, and she got pulled early. But then props to her, because so many other players would have taken that, even if it happened earlier in the season. This is the national championship game, and taken that and just, head down and completely out of it and not contributed anything else. But she came back in the third quarter, and that little floral run, but also just the two-way lay, as I like to call her, had, really tight pressure perimeter defense, 3-quarter court defense, led to a turnover. It was a layup and an assist, and Gino very smartly called a timeout when South Carolina cut it to, I think it was 11 point deficit or 13, down from 17, 19 points. And right after that, after timeout play led to a corner 3. And I think that led to Dawn's iconic meme that was created of her reacting on on
I
the
was doing the same
sideline
thing.
because she knew. So like if you're asking your question was like, there's a moment where I knew it was probably night. It was that moment. It was post timeout. Like if South Carolina makes a stop there and cuts the lead to 9 points right before as we get to the fourth quarter, then it's a game again. And Gino knew that. Everybody knew that. That knows things knew that. And that was essentially like a 5-point swing. And then immediately another 3. So then 11-point lead balloons back to 17. And then it's a 20-point lead, I think, going into the fourth quarter. So a really critical moment that was created by Malaysia, picking herself off the bench and getting back into the game, making a difference, forcing UConn to call a timeout. But props to UConn. Every time South Carolina tried to make a run, UConn not only would stop the run, but then they would extend it some more. It's like, oh, you want to cut this 5-point lead? We're going to make it 10. You want to cut this 10-point lead? We're going to make it 20. You want to cut this 20-point lead? We're going to make it 40. So it was just an impressive. I mean, it's some of the best basketball that's been played, especially by UConn, I would say over the last 5 years, if not more. Like I have not seen UConn play this well since the dominant UConn days. Like they had 3 number 1 recruits on the court, crushing it. Sarah Strong, first Final Four, acting like it's her 10th. AZ, like you said, coming back from all these knee injuries. Like I didn't know she'd ever get back to this point. And not only did she get back to this point, it looks like she was playing on 1.5 like podcast speed. Like she was the quickest player on the court.
Crossing people up.
Yeah. Like it was like, or like in 1v1, like nah, calling off whatever the offensive set. I got this, and driving downhill with ease. And so that was kind of just like, whoa, we knew AZ was great, but like she's been through so much. And here she is, like you mentioned, like she had been playing great basketball the last 2 months, but even that was like, okay, it's versus Big East opponents or whatever. Like, okay. Or, some non-1 seeds. But here we go. South Carolina, vaunted defense, and she is carving them up. So and then you have Paige, who whenever she needed to hit a clutch shot or get to the free throw line, she did that. So just an overall very UConn performance that we haven't seen UConn do in a very long time. So they deserved it.
That's exactly what I was thinking. I was like, oh, that's right. This is UConn. That's right. I've seen this before. It's been a long time, but now I remember who y'all are. Mm-hmm. It was wild. I think I didn't hit the Dawn meme yet, but I did start getting curious early on when they're going back and forth, and it was like a heavyweight bout. South Carolina was getting some inside looks and just not finishing, and it looked like that the physicality was kind of in their head, and they were like waiting for the contact to come. And I was like, wait a second, you just need to go ahead and finish or get fouled or something. You can't be looking and be like, okay, is someone going to hit me? Or even worse, waiting for Sarah Strong to come block your shot. And they're just kind of waiting and then going. And I was like, okay, they're definitely going to need those shots to go down if this is going to happen. And then, yeah, the other time was when Lay came in and immediately got ripped by AZ and went to the bench. Yeah. And then did the same thing in the second quarter, but didn't go to the bench. I think she ended up fouling Paige on a jump shot immediately after too. And I was like, this isn't what Lay does. And it was a weird spot because it was so close that I don't want to say you have to bench her there, but you can't lose the game there. Like you don't want to lose the game there, and you certainly couldn't win it. So you don't want to risk losing it there. So I see why Dawn took her out, but you're right. Credit to her for coming back in the third quarter, refocused. And I say refocused. People, I think when we talk about people not being focused, a lot of times people think it's because they're undisciplined or something, but it's really hard to focus when you're really hyped up and excited for something. And it could have just been that. Like she wanted to come in and make a difference and help her team win. So she wasn't locked in like she needed to be, but then she regrouped and came back in, and she was in the third quarter. Now, unfortunately, I mean, it was just, I don't know what you could have done. You had AZ going off, you had Sarah going off, you had Paige going off like you're talking about, 3 number 1 recruits, all playing like 3 number 1 recruits. It is what it is.
Yeah. There's obviously if you're in the Twitter, women's basketball community or just online in general, obviously there's been some talk this year about McDonald's All-Americans and, how, but all these teams that make it to the Elite Eight and the Final Four, if you look at they're now in the transfer portal era, but just even before that with high school recruiting classes, these are the teams getting the best recruits. It used to just be UConn, Hagen, and sometimes Notre Dame and Baylor. It's kind of wild to think about the SEC as the power. And I think that's there's so many interesting angles to this UConn-South Carolina matchup, which gets me frustrated when people just reduce it to, oh, it's UConn-South Carolina. Like, that's no fun. It's like, there's so much in this. Like, since UConn last won a title, like how many SEC teams minus just Tennessee holding that mantle had won a championship, and since UConn last won a natty, the SEC has come up and become this powerhouse. I mean, it was Mississippi State that beat UConn that first time before Enrique, had the iconic buzzer beater. And that's the same Mississippi State team that got beat by like 80 the year before. So the SEC has now, it feels like you're breathing oxygen, like the SEC is the best conference in basketball, but like that wasn't always the case. And so you have that with UConn trying to get back to the top for the first time in nearly a decade. And that AZ steal on Malaysia, that was a moment. Like that was one of those ooh, like it felt like you're at Rucker Park and like you're playing outside and both, the whole court surrounded and you're expecting so-and-so to do a thing, but then the defender does the thing that you're expecting the superstar to do. Like, whoa, that wasn't in the script. Like, whoa, Malaysia got the ball stolen from her by AZ? And it was clean. And it's kind of one of those things like UConn was like, hey, this is not going to go how the last 3 to 4 big time matchups have gone when we played South Carolina. Like this is going to be different. So that definitely was one of those early moments, like you said, where the score was close. Still was very much a game after that steal and layup, but it was like, ooh, like I like physically moved back a bit when I was watching. I was like, oh, that might mean something there. And turns out it was part of a much larger and dominant UConn story.
Yeah, because I don't think I've ever seen Lay get stripped that clean. And so, yeah, it was incredibly jarring. Everyone who plays basketball, you do get rips. Like, that's just what comes with the game. But something about it, it's rough. When you're just out there kind of isolated, no one's around, and someone picks your pocket clean like that, and they go the other direction. Oh, I'm having some flashbacks. So it was something.
Raven picking Caitlin last year in the national time. Like, Iowa comes out in that game on fire. Quick timeout with South Carolina, and then Raven gets moved on to Caitlin and has a couple, especially right before the half, a couple similar type steals in around half court, but also a pivotal point in the game that, ends up being the difference when it was close throughout the second half. So that those plays matter. Especially in a single elimination game where it's not just a series and you can be like, oh, well, we lost game 2, but it's a 7-game series. It's like, no, you have 10 minutes left. You got to do something about it. And so that's where tone and momentum and mentality and emotion really plays a much bigger factor in that. So yeah, that was definitely interesting and really kind of resets the college landscape now that UConn is back and there's so many younger fans that hadn't seen a UConn title, which is mind boggling to us.
Yeah.
But also now, like, maybe are even so young that, like, and it's also, I mean, it's again, so many threads. Last year, South Carolina's, capping off a perfect season, 38-0, and Sarah Strong commits to UConn. And then exactly a year later, Sarah Strong's playing South Carolina in the Natty and being Sarah Strong and leading UConn back to their first title in 9 years. And it's like this. I remember that moment when Sarah Strong committed to UConn, and now you snap your fingers, and exactly a year later, here she is. So yes, really fascinating to see. Now, along with AZ coming back, for another year, UConn, like, it's going to be interesting to see, like, is UConn back to, have their kind of run that South Carolina has had, or just what UConn has had, because no team has done what UConn has done in terms of, these 4 in a row and like 100+ wins in a row. That was unique dominance from UConn in the 2010s.
Yeah, I kind of was thinking Gino might retire with Paige, but then I don't know how you would look at what Sarah was doing as a freshman and being like,
Yeah.
you know what? I got a couple more years left in me. I got a couple more years,
Yeah. I would, if I was in his shoes, I'd probably think that too, of like, you know what? I'm rejuvenated. And, Gino if you know Gino, that, like, I think he will want to stay there as long as he can. Now, if they didn't win this game, then it maybe becomes like, am I the problem? Like, dude, it's going to go on 10 years since we've won. Do I need to let, someone else, take over? But landed Sarah Strong, AZ's back healthy. They, had this, like, it's not almost frustrating. It is frustrating to me that, like, UConn can get this almost like, this is about as Cinderella as UConn can have. Like, this story, like, oh, Paige, this is her 5th year and she's gone through all this and there's no national title, and she'll be like the best UConn player to never win a title. And, like, here's this final year where it started off like, oh, it's another UConn not going to make it. But then they switch gears by beating their top nemesis in South Carolina, and then they go on this fairy tale run. It's like, UConn's not supposed to have fairy tales. Like, UConn is the Wicked Witch of the East or whatever. Like, they're the dominant team, so just, this is I grew up being a Lady Vows and, Pat Summitt fan. So I'm putting this on me. Like, I'm Tennessee, and so I have to contractually obligated and bound by blood to hate UConn. But I'm just also objectively saying, like, UConn doesn't have that story. Like, they've now won 12 national championships. Like, that's not a program that gets a fairy tale ending, and they got one. Paige got one. So now they've co-opted fairy tale endings, and it's just like, it's too much for me. It's too much for me.
Now that you're talking about it, I wonder if this is their first title they've ever won as a 2 seed. I should look that up. I got to hire a research
fact
department.
finding. I mean, the 95, that first one, I feel like they probably were a 1 seed, if I can recall. That's a good question. I'm just gonna flag plant it without looking at it and say yes.
Me too. What do they get? Like, if we're wrong about this too, I'm just gonna say it was AI. Y'all can't prove I said this.
Yeah.
It was AI.
I mean, it'd have to be one of those between 98 and 2003, but, like, I would still say they would be one of the 4 seeds easily back then.
Yep.
So, yeah, that's a really good question. It's a really good question. I'm going to say
someone
yes.
will surely let us know. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
So,
I hope they do.
Yeah, I am curious. So, speaking of the landscape of women's college basketball, we've had a lot of huge transfer portal news. We are recording this on Wednesday. I had to double check. It's been that kind of week. Yesterday, I woke up to Olivia Miles going to TCU. What are your feelings on that move? TCU, I'm assuming, have some money.
Well, if they don't, then I need to learn their ways, because as someone who is in some financial challenges, like, show me how y'all are able to fake it till you make it. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that TCU, based on their alumni base and geographical location, and maybe religious connections, they got some dough down there for sure. So yeah, it was rumored, online, once the shocking news of Olivia Miles doing the 1-2 combo of deciding to forego entering the 2025 WNBA draft and then saying, "Oh, I'm gonna transfer too." I think that was the first time that had ever happened. Obviously, this is a new era. And so it's not like 25 years of transfer portal history to bank off of, but still really shocking news that definitely sent some shockwaves through the community. But yeah, I mean, TCU, I saw Jessica pulled up some old tweets of mine, the Madison Booker tweet, posted it online. Yes. But I got some TCU tweets from back in 2023 and then like 2024 of like TCU had been my team. Like, once Mark Campbell was announced to take over as head coach, I was immediately in, because I saw what he had done at Sacramento State in their run to the tournament the year before. And I'm like, no, TCU can make moves. And they had done it immediately, like, bringing in, talent, and like Taylor Bigby, like under the radar, Agnes Eminopu from Stanford, Donovan Hunter from Oregon State, Madison Connor, who was one of my favorite players, like early in her Arizona career, would just come off the bench and just shoot like 5 threes in a row. And so there's some really strategic moves and to really signal to guards like, hey, you can play here in my system, Mark Campbell's system. You can have fun. You can have freedom. And so, unfortunately, their 2023-24 season was hampered by injuries. Like, they had a really hot non-conference start. They weren't playing the toughest teams, but they were obviously much better than they were the year before, where I think they were last in the Big 12. So, but then they got hit with injuries. And so the story became, TCU's got to do tryouts in January to field a team. And I was really angry about that story, because it's like, no, this team is good. Like, everybody was first hearing about TCU as like, poor program. They picked someone from the volleyball team. And it's like this inspirational story that's making it on Sports Center. I'm like, no, do not disrespect this team. It's a great story, but like, it happens. And so I was frustrated by that, but then boom, 2024, they get, going into this season, HVL, pick up some other key players and show that, hey, if you're a guard, you can make it here. And now they made an Elite Eight run. So all of that, like, just to say 2 things. One, once again, I was early. I was tweeting by myself about TCU. The turnaround is happening. And then 2, if you're a guard, you saw what Haley Van Lith did. And, it's like that meme was like, I've seen what God has done for others, please do that for me or whatever, So like, hey, Olivia is going down there. I'm excited to see how it works. And they also had some injuries. TCU had some injuries this year too. Like Madison Scher, wasn't able to play. So really excited to see her. They also got Kylie Watson from Notre Dame, who's a former Oregon teammate of Maddie Scher, but also Notre Dame teammate of Olivia Miles. So Clara Silva got, Clara Silva, a really promising rookie from Kentucky, 6'7", post to come in, for TCU. So they got money. They got a great coach. They made a big run to the Elite Eight. And, they have a very veteran team. So there's definitely roles to be filled with Haley Van Lith, like Sedona Prince and a lot of other, players moving on.
Yeah, they're making moves. And I was interested to see, it was curious to me that Olivia did not go to the draft, because I don't think she can increase her draft stock. But when you consider what's going on with the CBA and the W, and how much money they clearly have at TCU, and you can maybe find a better fit if you in this draft coming up. Like, we don't know, maybe she didn't want to go to Seattle or wherever. And you're right, they just make guards. Mark Campbell just makes guards look incredible, and they are incredible guards, and he puts them in positions where they thrive.
Yeah.
So it was kind of weird, but once I got over the shock of, I don't know why she's not going pro if you're projected as the number 2 pick, then it was like, okay, well, I guess TCU would be a pretty good place to be.
Yeah, and again, like, I just went through my TCU story just to prove, like, from another perspective, can see more how it could work, but still, it does not remove the shock of just hearing the announcement, because it wasn't like I was saying, no one's saying this, but Olivia Miles is definitely going to stay in college for another year. I did not expect that either. I will say, and this is, from, our friend Mark Schindler, who talks about fit more so than kind of like your number of like where you're drafted, like especially with the WNBA, fit is so important, but also just where you are as a talent. Olivia, it's tricky because there are players who especially like the highlight generators, who make such stunning plays, whether it's these, long threes or incredible layups or flashy passes or steals. And they obviously are talented, but are they fully ready? Is anyone fully ready to immediately make an impact in the WNBA? Not just even year one, but like week one, month one. And so, yes, Olivia was projected to be number 2. Yes, she was more than likely to be drafted 2 or 3 at worst. But I think she can still improve. Like, before I even say that, everybody, if you are a player, you should want to improve. The best players of all time have always prioritized development. Candace Parker coming in, and with the collegiate career that she had, could have rested and like, well, I'm Candace Parker. And she came out right away and rookie MVP, dropped 30 in the first game. But her 2008-9 Candace Parker versus 2021-22 Candace Parker, still elite, but different. Different skill sets were used. Asia Wilson coming in, incredibly decorated career. She's got a statue outside of her university. Could have just been like, I'm just going to stay and just kind of be this, traditional post player. But 5, 6 years, 7 years later, she can do so much more. Stewie, same thing, like all these players. And then you go on the men's side, LeBron James, and how many times he's transformed his game. So I think if Olivia's got the right mindset, she can be better as a point guard. She's already improved her 3-point shooting, because that wasn't a thing that was I knew she could become a 38 to 40+% 3-point shooter, but she didn't show that in our first year or two, and then she got injured. But this year, she was really efficient from 3, and it added a new element to her offensive skill set. But I think defensively, there are areas where she can improve and be more locked in and truly become a above average to elite defender. And maybe that is something that she can work on, but also just get through a full clean season. This year she came back and came out the gate firing, which was awesome to see. But maybe another year and working under Mark Campbell and with his staff can make her better on both ends. And maybe she gets drafted number 2 this upcoming draft, 2026 or 1. But really, it's fit. Like, hopefully, it's I don't remember the 2026 mock draft off the top of my head, but I feel like like AZ is probably up there now, just the way she's playing. She plays like this for a whole year. Then it's like, oh yeah, this is the number 1 overall recruit, AZ Fudd. Like, this makes sense. And maybe it's between her and Olivia Miles, but
I think Lauren Betts
we'll see. Yeah, the baseline is like every player, no matter if you're the best player in the world, you should want to be a better version of yourself. So I would trust that Olivia knows where she needs to work. And she picked TCU because they're going to help her do that amongst other things. But this is one of the key priorities, like for Haley Van Lith, who also still needs to improve, but showed the work that she had already put in. So hopefully I'm wishing the best for Olivia and curious to see how it works too.
And something that just came to my mind, because you're talking about she came back from the knee injury, you might not want to go from a college season, you get like a day and a half break straight into the W season if you're coming off of a major knee injury. So there's plenty of reasons why you would stay in school. So now that we've talked it through, I definitely understand it more. I mean, I understood it when she went to TCU because you knew she's going to have some fun playing in that offense and she will be able to buy eggs. And what more could you ask for?
Stay in college so you can buy eggs. That is the true story of the transfer portal and having an additional year of eligibility.
Yes. And so the other news was Dawn Staley went straight from yelling on the sideline to picking up the phone and got Tanaya Latson from Florida State to come to South Carolina, nation's leading scorer. That also means Raven Johnson will be coming back. I don't know if this was a huge surprise. I think this has been a pretty strong rumor. But what are your thoughts about, to me, that seemed like a glaring need, especially in that final game, like a guard who can create their own offense to at least help out Malaysia a good bit. And they did it in a big way by getting the best scorer in the nation this past season. So what went through your head when you heard that news?
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, rumor that, came to fruition. Signs are pointing for her to make the move to South Carolina. It definitely adds, the probably cliche word this time, but a dynamic layer to their offense. I think it will be interesting to see how it plays out. I'm also curious, what it will help Tanaya do. Like, I don't think the expectation for me about her moving to South Carolina is that she's going to average 26 to 28 points a game or whatever. It's probably going to be closer to 17 to 19 points a game next year. That's a guess. I could be wrong. Maybe Tanaya ends up scoring 30 plus. And I'd be curious and excited to see how that looks for the South Carolina offense next year. But this team has shown that they've been able to change their offense. They, went multiple years and winning titles from not really shooting any threes. And then last year they shot the cover off the ball, and hit a bunch of threes. So it will, I'm curious about that. I know many people, the default is like, oh, she's not going to go to South Carolina because Malaysia, she needs to start. And it's like, how many times does Dawn and this team and the players need to communicate with y'all that does not matter at South Carolina? They depth is a feature, not a bug. Every program that doesn't have depth wants it. And when they play South Carolina and UConn, they feel it. So if you can add a premier guard, you're going to do that. And those are great problems to have. So I'm curious to see how they mesh and work together. It'd be cool to see Raven and Tanaya, rekindle that high school, playing kind of kinship there. So it's just interesting. They need to get healthy. Like Ashlyn Watkins not playing for most of this year. I think going back to your Sarah Strong, who could guard her. I'm not an expert, but I feel like that would have been an interesting defensive matchup to see. I think Ashlyn had the ability to guard her, on all three levels. But she's on a time track, just like Juju got injured into the season. Those are always tricky to see when you can come back. So wishing her the best there in her recovery as well. So yeah. Big splashes so far in the transfer portal. Really curious to see. I'm pro, or maybe not my final transfer portal part, but I'm pro portal. Like coaches got the ability to move for decades. They can move whenever they want with no consequence. And they've been able to get paid millions of dollars or, high six figures for decades to move. They promised these players in their, living rooms, in their homes. Oh yeah, you got a spot here. I'm going to be here all 4 years. And then they jet somewhere else. But then when the players get it, the same or similar ability to move, oh, now it's bad and they're making mistakes. So yeah, some of these kids are making mistakes. Like HVL made a mistake going to LSU, but maybe her decisions for why she wanted to go at the time were right. It's just the outcome didn't work. She was able to move again and hit the lottery at TCU. Let the kids make mistakes. The kids should have the opportunity to make mistakes. Let the portal figure, yes, there's some things that need to be fixed with NIL and the portal. There's things that need to be fixed everywhere. Don't, because this portal is so new, see something that's got wrong with it and be like, see, this is why college basketball is bad these days, because the kids are able to move like adults can. Just hear yourself when you're making that argument. No, these kids should have the ability to get paid for what they do because they add value. And if they want to move to another program, then they should be able to do it. And then they'll have the responsibility of that. We'll see. There's still players that haven't selected or announced where they're going. And fast forward 8 months, we're going to see a few of those. That was the wrong move. So what? Either fix it there or move somewhere else. Who hasn't made a mistake? Especially not an 18 to 22-year-old. So
college.
It's just the hand wringing is, I could keep going on this rant, but it's just what I'm seeing online from adults, people that are twice the age of these kids being oh, how dare she? You don't even know her. Who knows why they're leaving? It could just be a totally nice thing. Hey, I had a great year here and I want to go somewhere else. They did it with Olivia Miles and Hannah Hidalgo. She addressed it a couple days ago online, but it was just this insinuation that it was a toxic locker room and that's why everybody's leaving Notre Dame. And it's maybe it was, but what's your evidence? And also, it probably wasn't. All these outcomes are possible, but people know, oh, this is exactly why these players have left this program. And it's you're a fan like me. You don't know anything. So what are you talking about what you know? And then she comes out being yeah, y'all took that a long way and it wasn't that. So thanks, goodbye. And it's see, we never even needed to go there. So, all right, I'm going to stop that rant. But it's just portal good. Let the kids make choices.
That might be the perfect ending spot, honestly. Now, hopefully we have a little better luck, and when that gets clipped, then some terrible portal scandal doesn't come out and make us look terrible again. But
put it all on me. I will accept all portal consequences. With time travel, with players traveling to different programs, put it on me. I will shield you, Brandon. No portal scandals will hit you. You stay clean.
I was very worried because what I was going to do is I was just going to say, yes, I agree with Mike. No, I disagree with Mike. That way I've got both clips in there and we're safe.
There we go.
Just whatever, whatever the outcome is, I can just edit in. Jessica will just edit in that clip and we're good to go.
There we go.
So, no, again, I'm glad you came on so soon. I appreciate it. This was a lot of fun. Once again, where can the people find you? The man, Mike McGee, who is right way more than he is wrong. Where can they find your takes? If you want to be early on TCU and on Madison Booker, you come to this man. Where can they find you?
Yeah, well, at Michael McGee on Twitter. I was about to drop my address. Just at Michael McGee is the safest and most chaotic place to find my takes, to the audience of most of the time one. Sometimes when I'm tweeting for the audience of one, a tweet blows up and it's no, that was just supposed to be for me. I just need receipts for the future. I'm tweeting out things so that I can go back and quote tweet them 6 to 18 months later being see, I said that. And here we are. So I'm working on my 2025, 26 takes. But we got to let this portal, settle. Still some big decisions to be made across the landscape. So, before you know it, the WNBA will be here, and that's a whole other level of toxicity and fun. At Michael McGee is where you can find me yelling into the digital wind.
Boom. There you go. Username 8734961. No profile picture. Go track him down. This has been fun once again. This has been another episode of Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. Appreciate y'all watching, listening, rating, subscribing, reviewing, sharing, and I will catch y'all later.